So all yesterday we discussed about previous class we discussed about ER diagram. So I talked about data models. So data models define the structure of database, right? I told you define the structure of database which includes relationship, data type and constants. That's what we speaks in last class, data models I talks about. Then I designed about high level conceptual model which talks about the mini hall, requirement collection, logical design, conceptual design, physical design, functional requirements, then application development program, then there is a transaction implementation. So everything is done in last class related to ER diagram chapter, that is called entity relationship diagram. So what is entity relationship diagram? So entity relationship diagram is nothing but expressing database in a diagrammatic way. Expression of a database in a diagrammatic way. So what are the database what we built? It must be go through a diagrammatic way is called entity relationship diagram. It's called an entity relationship diagram. Okay, it's called as entity relationship diagram. ER diagram. So you want to express the things in an entire real-time system in a diagrammatic, you need ER diagram. You need ER diagram. Okay. So next go to what is entity. So I told diagrammatic way because if I write the diagram, so we'll discuss entire real-time application through ER diagram. So that it's a diagrammatic way. That's what I do. It's a diagrammatic way. So for example, teacher teaches a subject. So myself a teacher teaches and subjects. So I teach various subjects. I can tell that it is a teacher teaches the subjects. Okay, a teacher teaches the subjects. So I talked about teacher teaches subject. I told a teacher teaches a subject. So this is diagrammatic. So teacher teaches a subject. So one teacher teaches many subjects, right? So we have n number of teachers, but I'm picking only one teacher. That is what this partial participation is very partial. Then teacher subjects, many subjects. So it's cover entire subjects. It's come a total participation which includes the participation constants for ER diagram. So this is the way of expressing a teacher teaches a subjects in a diagrammatic way is called entity relationship diagram. It's called an entity relationship diagram. So then we'll go to what is entity. What is entity? Because what is entity? Entity is an object. It's an object that is available in real world with an independent existency. Okay, I told the object is available in a real world. So myself an object. I'm an object, right? When you go for recognition, if you talk about recognition, object recognition, which are the objects available in entire world is a huge database is there. Like that, so myself an object. This desk is an object. This board is an object. Right? It has independent existency. It has an independent existency for accessories. Right? Like that I am an employee. So employee is a entity. I have an independent existence in employee. That is my SSN. My SSN, right? My SSN. So if I tell entity, it's a object. It's an object that available in real world. In a real world. In a real world with independent existency. With an independent existency. With an independent existency. So it is thus that. So object must exist in real world. It must exist in real world with an independent existency. That's what myself and employee. So I have an independent existency, that is my SSN proves that I was an independent existency. So for example, this desk has a number, right? It is controlled by a number. It is a number. It has maybe desk as 1. So this is a unique ID for this particular desk, right? This board has a unique ID. This board has a unique ID. So it is, if I go for stocks, you can think about this is a unique ID with the number it contains. That is what we call as entity. That is what we call as entity represented in such a way in ER diagram as very simple way in a rectangular format. In a rectangular format, it look like this. It's a rectangular format. You want to write the entity name. This is the representation of entity. I'll write student as a entity. All right, student as a entity. Student as entity, because I write student as entity in a college database, in a university database, right? So it is look like this. It is entity set. It is a entity. It is an entity. It is an entity. Rectangular representation. Rectangular representation. Write a name of a particular entity or a table that you want to, with the independence existed to be written. To be written. Okay. This is entity. What is entity set? What is an entity set? So entity, we told that. So object in the real world with an independent existency. So if I tell entity with goes with entity set. Entity set. Entity set. Entity set. So what is entity set? So entity set is a collection of similar entities with the same properties. Collection of similar entities with the same properties. So collection of similar entities with same properties. With same properties. Collection of similar entities with the same properties is called entity set. What is the example I will give? So example is very simple way. So we are the employees, right? We are the employees for college. So I am a teaching employees. I am a teaching employee. There is a non-teaching employees. There are also employees, right? There are also employees. So it's a collection of employees. It's a collection of employees who are working for IS department. There may be CS department. There may be EC department. It's a collection of similar. We are all employees with the same properties, right? With a similar culture. It's a collection of similar entities. So employee working for IS department is employees. CS employee working, they are also employees. If you go to mechanical, exactly they are also employees. But with the same property means we are also into teaching, they are also into teaching. So we both are into teaching, right? This is called entity set. Collection of similar entity with the same properties is called entity set. It's called an entity set. That's what I told. It is a, if I go for company, there's HR department. There may be accounts department, right? HR department, accounts department. So employees are employee. You work in accounts department, they are employee. If I go for work for HR department, they are also employees, right? So both are employees with the same properties, right? With the same properties. The working culture are different. Working culture is different. That they will do HR managing job, they will do accounts job. But they are employees. They are employees. So this is called entity set. That is called an entity set. Okay, that is called an entity set. If I tell, so if I tell called as one database with a collection of employees. So employees, a collection of employees is called an entity set. So collection of employees of different department with the same properties. That is called an entity set. That is called an entity set. Next one, what is attributes? What is an attribute? What is an attribute? So I have a student as a entity, and I told it's a collection of entities with the entity set. I discussed about, then I told about attributes. So attributes I like to discuss. So what are attributes? What is attributes? So attributes which describe the entity. The entity is called attributes. Describe means I can express the entities through attributes. I can explain my entity myself through attributes. So what are the attributes I have? What are the features I have? First one, that's what, right? What are the features? So if I shall share the different features, right? What are different features I have? So I have beautiful USN, right? My unique ID, I have SSN number, that's social security number for myself. Then I have my name, right? My first name, my last name, my middle name, my age, my date of birth, my gender. These are all my properties as if I consider myself as an entity with the database of college, with the entity as employee, right? Like that, student has attributes which can describe the entire entity. So attribute which help us to describe the properties of entity. It describes the entity. Describes the entity. It describes the entity. Describes the entity. So here we have types of attributes to describe. As I told you, I told his name. So name as first name, last name, middle name. I have my address, right? Address is, we have a country, we have a state, we have a city, we have a street, we have a road class number, we have a door number, right? Then we have a date of birth. Yeah, the date of birth can be proved to age. What is my age? Depends upon my date of birth, right? Everything is possible. Everything is possible to describe. So there is a types of attributes to express the entity. To express the entity. So first one is simple wise composite. Simple wise composite. Simple wise composite. Where simple attribute, then this composite attribute. What is that? Simple means, as you told, I am simple. Simple means the attribute which cannot be divided into further. The attribute which cannot be divided into further is called simple attribute. If I tell composite, the attribute which can be divided into further, is called composite attribute. It's called an composite attribute. So I will tell USN is a simple attribute. USN which cannot be divided into further. So there is no USN1, there is no USN2, there is no USN3. It is only USN, yes. We has only USN, right? You have only USN. A simple attribute. If we go for composite, the attributes split into further attributes. The attribute is split into and further attributes and further attributes. That is maybe name. So student name can be split into first name, middle name, last name. Okay. So this is attributes. So attributes are split into further attributes. And attributes split into further attributes is called composite attribute. It's called an composite attribute. Okay. So simple attribute as simple, which cannot be divided into further. Composite, which can be divided into further attributes, is called composite attribute. Then we have single wise multi-valued attribute. Multi-valued attribute. Single wise multi-valued attribute. So attribute which contains single value is called single attribute. The attribute contain which more than one values, the attribute contain more than one value is called multi-valued attribute. It's called an multi-valued attribute. Okay. So that is what the multi-valued attribute is called. Single attribute which takes one a single value. Which are the single value takes, right? So single value takes by your USN takes single value, right? Your can takes single value. Your multi-valued takes more than one value. Which is more than one value? Maybe a phone number, because no students have one single number. Nowadays we have n numbers, right? We have a Jio, you have a Airtel, you have a Vodafone. We have 3 numbers because you want to maintain the internet, right? So you want to utilize the internet with the 3 GB, almost 3 SIMs. You want to buy 3 SIMs and you want to recharge 3 SIMs. So you have 3 numbers to contact, right? That's what? That is multi-valued attribute. So if I consider email, so myself I have 3 email IDs to maintain. One is the personal ID, one is college ID, another one personal ID to maintain my project works. Right. So like that people have more than one value, right, for a single attribute, that is email. So my email is an attribute for student. So then it has more than, each student has a more than one value for email. That is they have Yahoo account, they have Gmail account. So it is like this. It's called email or phone number. or phone number. So when you go for double circle eclipse, so double circle eclipse, it's called multi-valued. When you go for double circle, it's called an eclipse with a double circle, double eclipse, it's called multi-valued attribute. Single value, take only one value, that is USN takes only one value. USN takes only one value. Okay, only one value. So that is one type of attributes with a single wise multi-valued and simple wise composite. Then I have stored wise derived attribute. Stored wise derived attribute. Stored wise derived attribute. So stored attributes which cannot be, the attribute which cannot be derived from other attribute. So USN cannot be derived from other attribute. But stored attribute or derived attribute which is derived from other attribute, which is derived from other attribute. So age is a attribute, age is a attribute which is represented to dashed lines for derived attribute. Age is a derived attribute derived from date of birth. Derived from date of birth. Derived from and date of birth. Okay, that is called derived attribute. That is called an derived attribute. Okay, so single wise multi-valued. So I told single wise multi-valued. So simple wise multi-valued, single wise multi-valued, simple wise composite, stored wise derived attribute. Stored means which cannot be derived from other attribute. Derived means the attribute which is derived from other attribute, that is age is derived from date of birth. Age is an attribute which is represented dashed lines derived from the attribute called date of birth. Derived from attribute called and date of birth. Okay, date of birth. That is stored wise derived attribute. Derived attribute. Then I have key. Then I have key. So what is key? What is key in an entity? So key is the attribute which uniquely identify entity in an entity set is called key. Is called key. Here USN is a unique property which holds uniquely identify the student entity in a college database. In a college database. So USN is a key which uniquely identify the entity student in a college database. In a college database. So this is the small representation that shows how the different attributes, can be represented. Then I have small another one, domain of attributes. Domain of attributes, because every attribute must be specified with a domain. With a domain need to be specified. Domain attributes. So domain attributes. If I write domain of A, so domain of A, domain of attributes for age. So if I tell student age, if a person I want to be called student, the age may be between, so it is almost 24 years, right? Start from 3 to 24. So student, if I tell the age factor, so then it must be between 3 to 24. 3 to 24. If I tell name, name is always character, right? Name is always character. Name is always the character between A to Z. It in between small a to z, otherwise big A to Z, with a big A to Z. Big letters of A to Z, with the big letters of A to Z. Small a to Z or a big letters of A to Z. This is called domain attributes, which specify a set of attributes, set of values for an attribute that defined. So I am defining set of values for each attribute age, that is between, you must enter between 3 to 24. If I tell name, then I want to go with the characters of small a to z or big A to Z, big letters of A to Z, big letters of A to Z. That is called domain of attributes. That is called an domain of attributes. Domain of attributes. Okay. So like this, we represent a types of attributes. It's a types of attributes to be represented, to be and as to be represented. Okay, so this is the way. So simple wise composite, single wise multi-valued, stored wise derived, and key to uniquely identify attribute in attribute set. Then I have domain of attributes that define age and define the name attribute. But overall the structure have been stored. So you can see that this is what composite attribute, this is what the composite attribute, this is what key that defines with a single stored single stored value, and also what is called simple attribute. So phone number defines multi-valued, age defines derived attribute, age defines the derived attribute, age defines the derived attribute. So this is the wonderfulness of types of attribute that we have. I'll show another example where you can specify yourself. So what are the attributes that I have to specify? Okay, once if I see the what I call as once you people see the entity relationship, entity or entity with the types of attributes, you will automatically want to specify, oh, this is this that you want to specify. Okay, I'll take other example. Maybe I'll go with a customer with a bank database. Okay, with a bank database as a customer. Bank database is a customer. Okay, so customer has customer ID. Customer ID in the bank database, there is a customer ID you specify, because when you go for internet banking, you require to specify your ID. It's a customer ID that you want to specify, right? That's what the customer ID. Customer name. Customer name, that is what first name, last name, middle name. Then there is customer address that you want one of the required, right? Customer address, street, city, country, city, country. Street, city, country, and I want to uniquely identify the customer with customer ID, that is key, right? So it has simple, stored, what you call simple, store, and a single value has been done. Then we run with the composite attribute, where attributes divide into further attributes, right? Then I need to go with a customer phone number. Customer may have phone number with a multiple, right? Multiple, right? Then customer has email ID. Customer has email. It may go to single value or it may go to multiple values. Then customer has age, which is another key attribute in a bank, derived from date of birth. So overall, it looks like this. See, simple we covered with the key of attributes. So with the key, what simple, single, multi-valued, stored attributes, everything is defined, right? So simple wise composite, single wise multi-valued attribute, then store wise derived attribute, everything is specified, right? It's simple and easy ways to go with here diagram. Such a wonderful way of representing a ER diagram with a diagrammatic way. In a diagrammatic way. This is what the things looks like. This is what things looks like. If I go for relationship, I'll go with little bit relationship. So if I talk set like this, so if I go with customer holds accounts. Customer holds accounts, right? Customer has account number. Customer has account number, right? Accounts has account number as a unique key. Then account type. You can split this into 3. Savings account, current account, or which type of account. So you can specify what type of account for a accounts entity. Then there is amount. How much amount it contains. How much amount it contains, right? How much amount it contains, right? So this is called binary relationship because it has only two entities. So here I specified single, multi-valid, right? Composite, derived attribute. So comes with relationship, customer holds accounts. Customer holds accounts. So there's two entities. It's with a binary relationship. Binary means two entities. Ternary means three entities. So customer holds accounts. Holds accounts. So with accounts as simple attribute, with account number as a key, with the amount and composite attribute, that is account type. Account type, it has two attributes, two entities that define as binary relationship. They define as binary relationship. So this is a simple way that holds AR diagram. So if I dial customer holds account, it's easy to express in such a beautiful way. Okay, this is called binary relationship. Relationship defined by this diamond symbol. This diamond symbol defines the relationship between two entities, that is called binary relationship. It defines two entities, that is customer holds account, that holds with the diamond symbol defines the value of relationship. Defines the value of relationship. You can define attributes in relationship, that is date. That is date. So from which date the customer holds the account in a particular bank. In a particular bank. So which, for example, myself I have a bank in account in a syndicate bank. From which date? From which year I am having the account from particular bank, right? That time I require date as an attribute for relationship. For a relationship like this. Okay. So customer holds accounts from which date? So what as a relationship is with the attribute date that defines the binary relationship with an attribute. With an attribute. If I go for student enroll for courses I can define, right? It's a two entity. So teacher teaches means students, controls by teachers. We can define two entities with a relationship, controls by, right? A student enroll for courses. Enroll defines the diamond set with a relationship between the two entities, right? Everything is possible. It's an easy way to understand the entity relationship diagram. Such a beautiful way it's been designed. Okay, thank you. So next class I will continue with binary versus ternary, and what are the constants you want to follow this particular building an attribute relationship with the entities. So what are the constants you want to follow, how it works, how it looks, what is recursive, what is weak entity, everything is defined in a next class. Afterwards you can go with defining a real application, how to write a AR diagram for a real time application we can go ahead. Okay, so this is what we can go with the AR diagram. Okay, thank you so much.